My colleagues, members of the General Assembly and the Senate, it is my honor and pleasure to present the Governor of the State of New Jersey, the Honorable Chris Christie. We'll try this again in a second. They told me he was here. I trusted him. No, that's not the governor.
Here he comes. Here he is. Say no.
Here he is.
Please be seated. Thank you all for being here. Since I was first elected governor, I've had a number of opportunities to address this legislature. State of the State addresses, budget addresses, special sessions, but this is a new experience. First, I'm usually in the Assembly chamber, but the person who closed down the government on the people of New Jersey closed down the Assembly chamber to me. So I want to thank the Senate President and the rest of the senators, Leader Kaine, Majority Leader Weinberg, for the opportunity to address the legislature and the people of New Jersey in this chamber this afternoon, and for welcoming both sides of the aisle to come together here today. So, we've hit an impasse. We've hit an impasse over whether the state's largest health insurance company, which increases premiums year after year, needs greater transparency and accountability. It's July 1st, and we have no state budget on my desk. Under our system, I have a wide array of powers, as you've painfully learned, but I can't post a budget for a vote or vote for a budget. That sits squarely in the hands of the legislature. I can line item veto things out of the budget or keep them in, but I can't make the budget by myself or send the budget to my desk by myself. I can only articulate my priorities, which I did in February of this year, making my case during my annual budget address to you and to the public at large. And then, as has been the case for the past 8 years, the legislature gets to do its job, which it has every June since I've been governor, but not this time. However, all of you, members of the legislature as a whole, are not at fault for this failure to deliver a balanced budget. Whether you agreed or didn't agree with the budget deal that was on the table, you showed up to vote, to talk, and to weigh in. Isn't that why we're all here anyway? However, one person, the Assembly Speaker, has chosen to refuse his members their right to vote on a piece of legislation that has bipartisan support and that passed this body. In fact, he refuses to even discuss it with members of either party. He chose to shut down the budget process and to shut down the government instead. Now, since the beginning of 2017, I've consistently emphasized 3 and only 3 main budget priorities for me. 1, school funding reform. 2, improving the pension system using the state lottery enterprise. And 3, improved oversight and improved charitable activity from Horizon, the state's only nonprofit charitable insurance company. I have been straightforward and consistent in these priorities. I've spoken publicly and privately with legislative leadership from both parties about it. All three of these priorities are addressed in the bipartisan budget deal that I successfully struck with the state Senate. Two of the three, the school funding changes and the lottery contribution, are addressed in the budget bills themselves, and they're up for final passage in both the Senate and the Assembly. The Horizon Reform Bill has already passed in the Senate and awaits action in the Assembly. It took compromise, real compromise, to get where we are today. The budget bill that I agreed to sign contains elements that you know I don't necessarily support because I've vetoed them year after year after year, and those vetoes have been sustained. The school funding proposal, for example, contains just the beginnings of reform and is far, far from what I would like to eventually see. But I agreed to accept what I consider to be an imperfect compromise in order to achieve progress in other areas. See, that is the nature of compromise. You don't get everything you want, and you don't really want everything you get. But if your partners are willing to work with you in good faith in an honest way, I believe that's the way to make things better. And so I come here today in good faith to work with you in a straightforward, reasonable, and honest way. I wish I could say the same about some of the other participants in this process, but I can't. Now, since the spring, Horizon is engaged in what has simply been a systematic, well-funded disinformation campaign consisting of half-truths, untruths, exaggerations, and scare tactics. Enough. Today, I'm here to tell you the facts. Horizon is a $12 billion industry behemoth with a unique nonprofit designation and charity mission that it must appropriately and transparently fulfill. But it's not fulfilling that mission. Horizon controls 55% of the market in this state. Its nonprofit designation and its charity mission creates a special relationship with the taxpayers of this state. And here's why. Decades and decades and decades of tax breaks from New Jersey taxpayers because of their nonprofit designation allowed Horizon to have the resources to acquire this massive market share. I'm not sure if most of our residents know that Horizon wasn't created out of thin air. It was created by New Jersey law. The taxpayers, all of you, are the beneficial owners of Horizon. So just let me give you an example of how deep taxpayers' continued investment in Horizon is right now. I was alarmed to learn that in 2016 they made $163 million off of the New Jersey Medicaid program, which here we call New Jersey Family Care. Who paid for that $163 million in profit? The taxpayers, our constituents. Now, is that too much profit for a government-run program for the poor? Well, that question and others drove me to seek answers. And when I tried to seek answers, I realized there was not transparency and there was not accountability. Medicaid, which is funded by New Jersey state taxpayer dollars and federal taxpayer dollars, is the only profitable business line that Horizon runs. It's your dollars that are funding their profits, and among their other expenses, supporting multi-million-dollar bonuses to a host of executives. How many and how much is a question that taxpayers have a right to know, but that Horizon doesn't have an obligation to tell us. In 2017, Horizon raised the premiums on one of their Obamacare exchange projects, which is supposed to be there to provide insurance to those who need it in the private market. They raised the premiums on one of their products by just under 25% in 1 year. This, at the same time that they received, their executives received millions of dollars in bonuses. Those millions from the profits from Medicaid, funded through taxpayer subsidy. I ask you, is this appropriate? I don't know the answer to that, but we need to ask these questions. We need to get answers, and they need to be held accountable. Horizon needs to be transparent because it's taxpayer money at stake. It's your money at stake. So let's talk for a minute or two about what Senator Vitale's bill actually does, as opposed to what is mindlessly repeated by Horizon's lobbyists. Let's go through a bill like a person would actually read the bill. Section 1. Those contain transparency and accountability provisions. Here's a quote from it. A health service corporation shall have a charitable mission. Oh my God, Armageddon. If you listen to Horizon, you might think so, but it hardly is. Take a look at the statutes that established Horizon in New Jersey. The word charitable appears a lot, an awful lot. By statute, Horizon is defined at its beginnings as, quote, a charitable and benevolent institution. Let me ask all of you, and you should ask your constituents, would they describe dealing with Horizon like dealing with a charitable and benevolent institution when they're kept on hold for hours and never spoken to, when their claims are denied time after time and delayed so they can keep more of that money to make more investments on the stock market, when they're told that the insurance they paid for won't pay for the illness of their loved one? They'd probably describe them as a lot of things. But a charitable and benevolent institution is probably low on the list. Next, the bill says Horizon shall, quote, fulfill its obligation as an insurer of last resort, close quote. Wow. Did we hear a lot of weeping and wailing about that one? But again, a review of the actual statutes, instead of Horizon's misleading talking points, reveals a very different story. Of course, Horizon is not the only insurer in the individual market, so insurer of last resort is really theoretical. It means if everybody else left the market, they would have to stay. Well, why? Under the 1992 insurance market reforms, for-profit insurers operating in New Jersey, not Horizon, the for-profit ones, must either participate in the market or they have to pay an assessment to compensate insurers in the market who suffer losses, like Horizon. Horizon's unique statutory status as a charity, however, obligates it under current law to hold open enrollment each year and to accept all subscribers. That's an insurer of last resort. The bill also says Horizon shall, quote, assist and support public and private health care initiatives for individuals without health insurance, close quote. Now, I don't know about you, but that seems like a pretty good idea to me for a health service charity, no? I mean, the bill also says, quote, it should acknowledge its obligation to the residents of this state to make health care coverage available to the underserved markets by supporting and supplying community services in connection with the provision of health care, close quote. Another radical concept from Vitale, that a charitable health insurer should address the needs of the underserved who can't get health care in any other way. Pretty necessary thing for a charitable nonprofit company. And how about this one? Quote, recognize an ongoing responsibility to contribute to fundamental improvements in the overall health of all New Jersey residents, close quote. I mean, seriously. The legislature having the nerve to remind a charity that it has charitable obligations? And other transparency provisions require the filing of a 990 type form, the same form filed by practically every other nonprofit nationwide, and posting it on the Banking Insurance Department's website, along with the annual financial statements that are already there for all for-profit insurance carriers in the state. Now, with regard to governance, Senator Vitale's bill provides for 3 members of the Horizon Board of Directors to be elected by Horizon's subscribers. Democracy. That's how we all got here. So far, so good. Clarification of a charitable mission, transparency, and democratic elections. I'm still waiting to get to the threatening and offensive part of the Vitale-Pinter-Marin bill. The last sections of the bill relate to Horizon's surplus or reserve levels. So let me be clear. There is no slush fund. There is no money grab. You can read the bill all day long today and all night tonight, and you will not find a reference to the government taking $300 million. It's not in there. It was never in there. So let's look at what's actually in the bill. What's in the bill is a logical, well-defined process that will not occur until after my administration comes to an end. A process that will be overseen by insurance regulators, as is done in other states like Pennsylvania. A process that is characterized by public input, public participation, and one that gives every Horizon person an opportunity to have input and allows Horizon to operate its business and manage its surplus within an appropriate, efficient range, and to spend down any excess surplus pursuant to a plan that it devises itself, that Horizon devises itself. Not me, not Joe, not Ileana, Horizon. But it has to help the poor, the sick, the drug and alcohol addicted. It's not an evil proposal, and that's not a government takeover. That's far from it. Now, I want to commend Senator Vitale for his hard work in crafting a bill that is eminently fair, promotes transparency and democratic values, and establish a fair and balanced process for overseeing one of the most major charitable institutions in this state. Now, on the less laudable side, throughout this legislative process, the conduct of Horizon and its supporters has been nothing short of deplorable. At every opportunity, they've chosen to hide behind deceptive advertising and phony math. So what am I talking about? Let's get specific. Start by taking pretty much anything they've said and examine it. For example, Horizon claims to have 3.8 million members that it must maintain a surplus for. All of its public relations presentations falsely indicate that its $2.4 billion in reserves are necessary to protect 3.8 million members against unexpected risk. I'm sure every one of you in this chamber has heard that claim over and over again. But let's examine it. Nearly half of their so-called members are self-insured by other entities. You know what other entities? Us. State retirees, state employees, and folks on New Jersey family care. Remember something, Horizon has no risk on those folks, no risk at all. We, the taxpayers, have all the risk, and they make all the money. They're administrators of the plans, not insurers. These distortions flow through all of their phony math. Why do you need a bigger reserve to buttress against risk that you don't have? If Medicaid costs go up, we pay for it along with the federal government. If the costs go up for the health insurance of our state employees or retirees, we put more money into the budget, not Horizon. What's consistent about what they do, though? They make money no matter what, without any risk. So do not believe this 3.8 million member statement. It's untrue. They have closer to 2 million members where they have risk and 2.4 billion in reserve to buttress against that risk. The simple fact of the matter is this: Horizon doesn't want additional oversight. They don't want to give additional transparency. They don't want us to hold them accountable. And unfortunately, they have politicians who will do their bidding, in fact, refusing to even discuss it, to put their finger in the air and say, I won't talk about it. That's why we're here. I won't talk about it. That's what I've been told, and not just me, but members of this body who have been told exactly the same thing by the Speaker of the Assembly. Now think about that for a second. Legislative leaders who refuse to even discuss the possibility of reforms. All of this is typical of Horizon and its CEO. They prefer to hide behind their lobbying and public relations teams, pretending that everything Horizon does is for the people of New Jersey, while at the same time, its executives are advocating for this type of status quo. And why wouldn't you if you were them? They're receiving multi-million-dollar annual bonuses and being driven around the state by chauffeurs. Now, when you're a nonprofit, your dollars are supposed to be reinvested back into the charitable mission, not sitting in an excess reserve account, not being invested in the stock market, not lining the pockets of executives and lobbyists and public relations staff, not paying big law firms to go to court and argue, and they did this. They sent law firms to go to court and argue that Horizon is not a charity in the first place, despite the fact that the whole reason they were created was to be a charitable and benevolent organization. They actually did that, and they paid for it with the money of our constituents. Horizon built its empire in this state on the backs of New Jersey taxpayers, but good luck finding even the most basic information about their financial dealings. No 990 forms like other not-for-profits, no consolidated financial statement that covers Horizon's parent company and its numerous affiliates and real estate holding companies. How about this? The Senator and I have spoken about this. How about the fact that Horizon has real estate holding companies with which it does business, or anything? They do nothing that's prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Truly a shocking lack of transparency. I think Horizon needs to be straightforward with the public about what's going on with its finances and staffing and salary and compensation arrangements, not running out the clock until they get a new governor who they hope will look the other way. I will never look the other way when insurance companies are taking advantage of our people. How many lobbyists and lawyers do they need? How many do they really have? How much do they cost? And because when we figure that out, we know how much money they're diverting away from improving health care for people in this state. And the same, by the way, is true of their public relations staff. How many and how much for that team? Good luck. Good luck finding out that information. The cost of health insurance premiums is an everyday discussion in every New Jersey household. And Horizon raises your rates every year, making the budgets of our families in this state even tougher to make. While at the very same time, they're hoarding money in this excess reserve account so they can pay themselves bigger bonuses, give themselves more luxurious perks, and invest more in the stock market. And it's our obligation, I argue to you today, our obligation as representatives of our residents to discuss how the largest insurer with unique nonprofit status that makes taxpayers beneficial owners of Horizon conducts itself, and if that's in the public's best interest. And we should, in fact, I say we must, do this through the governmental process, since we created Horizon in the first place. When I stood before you nearly 4 months ago, I asked you to join me in partnering with the insurance industry to take action to fight for our most vulnerable in the state impacted by the devastating opioid crisis. What I proposed that day is that we work urgently to establish a permanent fund that Horizon would financially support each year through their abundant excess surplus built up by the premiums paid for by their New Jersey customers. Now, the legislation has changed over the months, and here's the reason it's changed. Because I was willing to listen to others and to compromise with the people who sponsored this bill. The motivation behind this initiative, though, has not changed. We're asking Horizon to acknowledge its obligation to the residents of this state to make health care more available to the underserved people of this state. We're asking Horizon to recognize its ongoing responsibility to contribute to fundamental improvements in the overall health of all of our residents in New Jersey. Let me tell you what we're really fighting for in this debate. It's not just words on a page. And believe me, it's not just politics. Here's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the mother and the father, racked with grief over their child who is drug addicted, but unable to get Horizon to pay for his treatment through the policy they paid for, or to get any help for their child through Horizon meeting its charitable obligation. In this fight, we are fighting for those parents, and Horizon is fighting against them. We're fighting for the mother, whose husband had abandoned her and their newborn child, and who was left with no one to help them but the doctor who their Medicaid coverage provides to them. We did not expand Medicaid in this state to allow Horizon to delay paying claims, refuse to take her phone calls, and make $163 million in the process. That's not why I expanded Medicaid, and I know it's not why you advocated that I expanded Medicaid. By supporting the Vitality bill, we're fighting for that single mother. Horizon, as it was fined $15.5 million last week due to the conduct of working against that patient and against that doctor. We're fighting for the middle-class carpenter who pays a fortune already for his health insurance to Horizon, then watches them increase his premiums each and every year and work hard to hide why they question every claim he submits for he and his family. What if he knew that those denials funded in part multi-million-dollar executive salaries and armies of lobbyists and lawyers to stop this bill, which will do nothing more than hold them accountable? We're having this fight because those of us who support this are fighting for that New Jersey family through the Vitality bill. Horizon has shown you all week they are fighting only for themselves. And that, my friends, is just flat out wrong. That's why we're fighting. That's why we care. And that's what we're fighting for in this debate. And here we are at an impasse. Government is closed over a transparency and accountability fight. I'm at a loss for the true motivation of what's happening here. I'm at a loss for why someone would refuse to even have a conversation with members of their own party, let alone of the other party. Each and every one of you knows that this company has enormous power and influence in this state. I'm able to take this issue on at the end of my term because I'm never going to be on the ballot again. And I can afford to, and I will, take the political fallout of standing up to the all-powerful Horizon money and lobbying machine. We've all watched a multi-million-dollar attack dog response campaign against me personally, and many of you, ever since I suggested in February the company had an obligation to do more. Because we dared to say what everyone in this chamber is already thinking, has actually been thinking for years. All you have to do is look at past pieces of legislation introduced on this very same topic, including by Speaker Prieto himself, who sponsored a similar bill requiring Horizon to spend its excess surplus on charity care for New Jersey's hospitals. Excess surplus from Horizon to the government to help pay for the poor. The Speaker didn't think it was such a bad idea when it was his, only when it was mine and Senator Vitale's. He was for it before he was against it. Typical, typical, typical politics. I come here today asking for you to sit at the table with me on behalf of our constituents and work with me on a legislative proposal that will ensure that New Jersey's nearly monopolistic insurance carrier has the appropriate level of transparency and accountability, and that the poor and the needy in our state will be better served. That is all I'm asking. I offered one proposal, you rejected it. Senator Vitale and Assemblywoman Pintor-Marin offered another proposal. The Senate passed it on a bipartisan basis. I support it. I urge the Speaker to come to the table and end these political games. I have compromised. I have listened, but I want to be clear to all of you. I will not capitulate to the high-paid lobbyist smear campaign. That is not the governor I have been or will ever be, and that's not who you are either. If we let the Horizon machine intimidate us into failing to act now, they will be even further emboldened to dominate healthcare policy decisions in this state for years to come. I'm leaving. You'll have to put up with the results of our failure to confront them now. We owe the people of our state much, much better than that. Work with me. End this shutdown. Protect our citizens from this company, which unfortunately has forgotten why we created them in the first place. It's time we reminded them. Let's do it together, and let's do it today and then go home. Thank you all very much.
Routine business.